right, so a huge event just went down in Venezuela, and it's completely shifting the geopolitical game. Now, you've probably heard one very simple reason for why it all happened, but the real story? It's way more interesting, and believe it or not, it has very little to do with what you're seeing in the headlines.
Look at this number, $17 trillion. That's the estimated value of Venezuela's oil reserves, which are the largest proven reserves on the entire planet. To give you some perspective, that is more money than the entire economy of every single country on Earth, except for the US and China. I mean, we're talking about a mind-blowing amount of wealth just sitting right there under the ground. And with a number like $17 trillion, it's really no surprise that the story you've probably heard is pretty simple. This is all about a US oil grab. It's an easy story to tell, right? You've got this massive resource and a powerful country that wants it. Makes sense on the surface. But here's where that story starts to fall apart. The timing. Think about it. If this was really just a simple smash and grab for profit, wouldn't the US have done this years ago, back when Venezuela's oil production was at its peak? Why wait until now? The timing just doesn't add up. And listen, this isn't just me speculating. A key US policymaker laid it out plain and simple. He said, "We don't need Venezuela's oil. We're not going to allow it to be controlled by adversaries." And that quote right there, that's the real story. It was never about the US taking the oil. It's about preventing rivals like China and Russia from controlling it. This is about denying leverage. So, to really get why denying leverage is such a big deal, we need to talk about this fundamental, almost unwritten rule that's been guiding American foreign policy for 200 years, especially when it comes to its own neighborhood. And this isn't some random thing. There's actually a playbook for it. The Pentagon basically has 3 main triggers for getting involved. First, a rival power shows up in a strategic region. Second, that region starts to impact global trade or security. And third, it's happening inside what America sees as its enforcement zone. Venezuela, it checked every single one of those boxes. Boom, boom, boom. Now, this whole framework, it's really just a modern version of a very old idea called the Monroe Doctrine. It was established way, way back in 1823, and the core idea has always been the same. The Western Hemisphere is America's sphere of influence, and it's off limits to other big powers. It's basically the original stay out of our backyard policy, and yeah, it's still very much in effect today. And make no mistake, this isn't some dusty idea from a history book. You can draw a perfectly straight line from 1823, when it was used to warn off European empires, right through the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was all about this, all the way to what's happening in Venezuela today. For 200 years, it's been a prime driver of American action. Okay, so that's the American playbook. But to see the whole picture, we've got to flip the map and look at the totally different game its rivals are playing over in the Eastern Hemisphere. For more than a century, there have been these 2 big ideas about how to control that part of the world. The heartland theory says you have to control the massive central landmass to be dominant. But the rimland theory says, nope, what really matters is controlling the coastal areas and the sea lanes, the rim, because that lets you control trade and, crucially, box in your rivals. Russia is the perfect example of a heartland power. I mean, just picture the map. It's this huge landmass, but so much of it is frozen or landlocked. That's exactly why controlling its rimland, places like Ukraine, with its super important warm water ports, is an absolute must for them. Without that access, Russia's basically trapped. So how does all this tie back to Venezuela? Well, because in the 21st century, this great game isn't just about oil and sea lanes anymore. There's a whole new category of resources that have become absolutely critical to a nation's power. And this, right here, reveals a huge American vulnerability. The U.S. is 100% dependent on other countries for 12 different critical minerals. And we're not talking about optional stuff. These are the essential ingredients for literally everything, from the phone in your pocket to the most advanced military jets. And here it is, the real choke point. See, it's not just about who digs these minerals out of the ground. It's about who can actually process them into something usable. And right now, China processes a staggering 91% of the world's rare earths. That gives Beijing an almost total monopoly and incredible leverage over the entire global tech industry. This is where Venezuela suddenly becomes way more important than just an oil field. China was building an entire supply chain from start to finish right in America's backyard. Step 1, get the raw materials, like rare earths, from allies like Venezuela. Step 2, ship it all to China to be processed. And step 3, control the global supply, giving them a massive bargaining chip.
So, when you put all these pieces together, you see the U.S. move in Venezuela was never actually about getting oil. It was about denial. Denying rivals control over these super strategic supply chains, denying their military presence, and at the end of the day, enforcing that 200-year-old rule about who calls the shots in the Western Hemisphere.
But here's the thing. What happened in Venezuela isn't some one-off event. It's actually part of a much bigger trend that's happening all over the world. A great consolidation of power, where each major superpower is now making moves to lock down what it considers its non-negotiable interests. And you can literally see these non-negotiable zones taking shape on a world map. For the United States, it's the Western Hemisphere, just like the Monroe Doctrine says. For China, it's all about controlling Taiwan and the Pacific supply chains. And for Russia, it's about securing that rimland access in Eastern Europe. Everyone is shoring up their home turf.
So, if this theory is correct, if each superpower is busy securing its own zone, then where is the geopolitical chessboard pointing next? Well, if you follow this logic, the next big flashpoint is pretty likely to be Iran.
And Iran fits this pattern perfectly for a bunch of reasons. It's a classic rimland power that controls the Strait of Hormuz, a massive choke point for global oil. It's a key supplier of cheap oil and weapons to adversaries like China and Russia, helping them get around U.S. systems. It's a direct threat to Israel, a major U.S. ally. It was even involved in Venezuela, which kind of brings this whole story full circle.
All of this really leads us to one final huge question. As these superpowers move to consolidate their power and draw these hard lines around their non-negotiable zones, from the Americas to Eastern Europe to the Pacific, what on earth does this new world order mean for every other nation that's caught in between?